My family owned a large property with 3 houses and 12 acres of land. In one house lived my grandma and grandpa. In another lived my aunt and her 3 kids. Then there was our house. I lived in it with my sister, 2 brothers, and both parents. We weren't rich, but they were nice old farmhouses that had been renovated before we moved in. My parents wanted all new upgraded appliances, flooring, and paint, but they wanted the layout and farmhouse feel to stay. My grandma and grandpa didn't renovate, except to put in shower bars and a few other things to make their lives easier. Their house was my favorite. It was the smallest, but it was tucked away on a corner with large wild plants concealing it, almost as if they were hiding from the rest of the world. I spent as much time there as I could, because it was quieter than my house, and I absolutely adored my grandparents. I was always staying at my grandma and grandpa's house, helping them garden and can and helping do anything they needed me for. In one particular summer, when I had just turned 15, they'd sat me down and said, "Sammy, we trust you so much. You're such a huge help around here, so we have an important favor to ask. We already talked to your mom and dad, and they said yes. Would you like to house sit while your grandpa and I go away for a weekend? We've been meaning to use a hotel stay your parents gifted us for Christmas last year, and we've been noticing how mature and responsible you've become. This is a huge task, though, so if you aren't ready, it's okay," Grandma said. I was instantly excited, scared, and of course totally proud that they chose me over my older brother. "Sure," I said. "There's $200 in it for you when we get home," Grandpa chimed in, as if I needed extra incentive to get to stay in a house by myself, with 2 dogs and satellite TV as a teenager. Of course, there were safety precautions in place. My parents were to come over each night and basically lock me in or make sure the house was locked up, and make sure I didn't have anyone staying overnight. But otherwise, I had free reign of the TV and food, something I didn't have at home. My brothers were constantly eating everything in the house and watching live sports events all day. It was Friday, mid-afternoon, and Grandma and Grandpa were all packed up to leave. "Now, Sammy, if you do get scared, you can always lock the house up and sleep at home. Just come back to feed the dogs in the morning," Grandma reassured me. But I was not going to be scared. I was going to be pigging out on Grandma's lasagna and binge-watching the Vampire Diaries. Later that evening, I put the lasagna in the microwave and poured myself a glass of Grandma's iced tea. The dogs started barking, so I stepped out to yell at them to come back in. I've never heard them bark so much, I thought to myself. It took probably 10 minutes to get them to calm down. I had to go out and physically bring them in by the collars. It took so long, I had to reheat the lasagna. It had gone cold. My mom called to check on me for the 3rd time in the 5 hours I'd been alone. Once I reassured her I was fine and the house was fine, I settled in to eat, grabbing the TV remote. Grandma always recorded Vampire Diaries for me because my brothers had our DVR full of guy things. There was an entire season to catch up on, and I was ready to enjoy a quiet, brother-free evening. I was about halfway through the first episode when the dogs started barking again. This time, they were both in the house, but they were standing next to each other on the couch barking out the window at something. It had to be some kind of animal, and I hoped it wasn't another skunk like last time. Again, it took probably 10 minutes to calm them down, so I could watch my show in peace. But about 5 minutes later, I heard footsteps on the deck. I flung the door open, ready to yell at my mom or siblings for checking on me for the 51st time, but no one was there. Okay, creepy, I thought, shutting the door and locking it. Later, after I had finished my 3rd episode, I knew my dad would be over soon to make sure I was locking up tight for the night. So I cleaned up my dinner mess and changed into my pajamas. After Dad left, I rechecked the doors and windows like I promised I would, and settled in for more Vampire Diaries and snacks. Grandma stocked the cabinets with my favorites. Suddenly, the door to the master bedroom slammed shut. It scared me so much the popcorn bowl flew out of my hand and onto the floor. I wandered over to the door slowly, not sure what could have caused it to slam shut. I thought Dad checked all the windows, but maybe Grandma left their bedroom window open, I thought. But slowly opening the door, I realized that wasn't the case. The window was firmly shut. So I looked around, not sure what it could be, but there was no explanation. I should have locked the house up and left, because that night didn't get any better. I was already feeling uneasy, so I decided to stay on the couch, instead of going to the room Grandma called mine. I didn't want to admit defeat this early. I couldn't admit to my parents I was creeped out already. It wasn't even bedtime yet. So I put on some lighthearted comedy and grabbed the pile of blankets Grandma left for me. I figured I'd just watch a few episodes of some mindless comedy and drift off to sleep. Sometime after I had dozed off, I was woken up by a sound I couldn't place at the time. As I sat up, I realized it was the radio. Well, actually the old CD player my grandma had, and it was playing one of her classical CDs. I looked around for the remote, thinking I'd probably fallen asleep on it, but it was on the coffee table in front of me, nowhere near enough to be accidentally pushed. At only 15, this was enough to make me panic. My heart was racing, and I was close to calling my parents to come walk me home. But again, I knew how big this was. I didn't want to disappoint them or my grandparents. So I turned off the music and sat back on the couch. Almost back to sleep, I screamed when I was again awoken. But this time, I opened my eyes, and there was someone, or something, standing on the back porch staring in. There were eyes. I saw 2 eyes staring at me. I had heard footsteps on the deck and hesitated to open my eyes, because I felt the presence, and I was right. Thankfully, I thought quickly. I always fell asleep with the phone in my hoodie, so I knew what I had to do. I didn't want to, but I had to admit defeat and call my parents. I reached my hand in my hoodie and held down the number 2 key, knowing it would dial my dad. We had always had a plan. If one of us kids was in trouble and could use the phone, we would call a parent and say something undetectable to the person intending to harm us. I heard my dad's voice frantically yelling my name through my pocket, so I looked towards the person standing on the deck and said, "How can I help you? Are you okay?" I heard my dad's voice yell, "Sammy, get to Grandma's room and lock it if you can. We're on the way. Grandma has pepper spray in her top dresser drawer. Grab it." I slowly stood up, but when I looked out the window, the person was gone. There were no eyes staring back at me. I made my way to my grandma's room, shut and locked the door, and grabbed the pepper spray as Dad instructed. I took my phone out of my pocket and said, "Dad, I'm safe. I'm in Grandma's room. Hurry." But I didn't have to tell him to hurry. He was already halfway across the walkway. "Mom's on the phone with the police. I'm on my way," he said breathlessly. Dad nearly broke down the door trying to get in. Finally, he slowed down and got the key to work. I rushed out to him, and minutes later, the police arrived. They searched nearly every inch of the land over the next hour and took my statement. I didn't tell them about the stereo turning on and the other weird occurrences. I didn't want them to think I was just some kid with an overactive imagination. They didn't find anyone, or any sign of anyone for that matter. And to this day, I still wonder if what I saw wasn't a live person. Maybe it was paranormal. We will never truly know, because it's been 6 years, and there's never been another occurrence, or evidence of anyone trying to cause harm. And yes, I did get that $200, and more, because my grandparents were so upset they put me in danger, even though I tried to tell them it was okay. Grandma tried buying me everything that summer. Wow, that had to be scary at only 15. Thank you so much for sharing, Sammy. I'm glad that didn't end badly. It really could have. If you have a story like Sammy's that you would like to hear in an upcoming video, email it to the address in the description below. Please like and share. It helps tell YouTube we're here and we want to be heard. And with that, I'll see you tomorrow, friends.